Great. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine with the Building Performance Institute. Thank you for joining us today for What Were They Thinking? A home performance game show brought to you by our talented panel and the Learn program. The Learn program offers free energy efficiency and electrification courses, and they have an extensive list. So definitely check them out at sandiegolearn.com. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our moderator, Shane Bullock. Shane, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Jasmine. Just a quick logistical thing. Thank you, first of all, everybody for joining the webinar online here. We're navigating some technology right now, trying to have a little bit of fun with that. Jasmine, Katie is live now and needs moved over if you can. Katie, we're working on that if you can hear me here. So we're gonna get going with this. So Jasmine, if you would like to go to the next slide here. And Katie is working her way in here. So as we're working on getting Katie in here as a presenter, we're gonna go over a couple of things real quick to give you a little bit of what to prepare for with this webinar. Our learning objectives. All right, we see Katie. Good. Thank you so much. Our learning objectives, what you're going to walk away with from this webinar. Number one, it's going to be, we believe, a clear picture of what can go very wrong when work isn't done right. We're also going to look at tips and tricks and pro insights from seasoned weatherization experts that you see on your screen right now on the panel that's in front of you. And we're going to take a look at a little bit of a highlight reel of what were they thinking, moments that you're not going to easily forget, and that really hopefully won't repeat. Okay, so we do have, all right. Thank you. All right, folks, so we're going to start having a little bit of fun here. So we are going to meet the panelists, and again, we're really going to be trying to have a little bit of fun with this. This is stuff we've all seen as industry professionals or experienced at some point. And so we want to at least make a little bit of light out of it while we're going through some of these pretty serious issues. So here we go with the panelists. Myself, Shane Bulick, I am Director of Programs here at Earth Forward Group. And with me, I have Katie Gonzalez, who is a QA Manager and Safety Coordinator with CMC Energy Services. I've got Sonia Cruz, who is our lead technical instructor here at Earth Forward Group. Jeff Flattery, who is the founder of Wise Home Energy, and Andrew Rodriguez, who is the field manager with Performance Systems Development, or PSD. So for the panelists, I'd like you to just maybe introduce yourself and give just a quick 30-second background of what you do and who you are. So I'll start with Katie. I'm just going to go left to right. So Katie, if you would.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Katie Gonzalez. I work at CMC Energy Services. Like Shane said, I currently manage the quality assurance portfolio for the home weatherization and comfort partners programs in New Jersey that we run weatherization for. But I came into the industry, like a lot of us, kind of by accident. I was a carpenter. I was out of work. I was trying to find something, and I kind of backwards ended up as an energy auditor. Had never heard of it. And I have not looked back since then. I've been in the industry since about 2017. I obviously came with some construction knowledge, which certainly helped, but there is just always more to learn. And so I really, really love being a part of sharing my knowledge that I've learned and gaining more knowledge from the other folks that are in the industry with us. Really excited to be on this panel of really awesome folks who have a lot of knowledge between us. I'm looking forward to teaching and learning some things today. Sonia?
Maybe I should unmute before I try to start this thing, but my name is Sonia Cruz. I, like Katie, kind of stumbled into this thing here. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or so. I did manage to retire though, or I thought I did, for about 3 months. Then I got sucked into becoming a technical instructor and sharing my knowledge with a bunch of teenagers. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I did work in the field for about 10 years and eventually got tired of crawl spaces and spiders and the sorts of that. In addition to suffering from the over 65 syndrome about 5 years ago, now the over 70 syndrome, I'm here to share a little bit of those craziness that we ran into out in the field. Let's see, who's next? Jeff.
Thanks, Anya. I'm Jeff Flaherty with Wise Home Energy. I founded Wise Home Energy 15 years ago. The 5 years prior to that, I worked for Honeywell on the implementation side. I guess there's a theme. Maybe I fell into it also. And once I fell into the industry, I was able to really just develop a passion for it, to be able to prove that we can fix homes and make people's lives better. So it's a fun journey. I'm always learning and thankful to be able to hopefully share a few tips and tricks myself. So thanks for all joining, and on to you, Andrew.
Great. Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew. I am the field manager for performance systems development for the QA division in New Jersey. I've been in this industry roughly about 6 years. I started out as an HVAC installer and then worked my way into the QA side of things. Look forward, like Jeff said, spreading some knowledge in any way we can.
Yeah, and so for all of you that are online, we've really I've worked with all of these folks in different capacities over the years, and they've got just a plethora of experience from all different aspects of the industry. Like myself, I am a recovering energy auditor, crew lead. I've been there, done that, worked in QCI as well. And so the one thing that we found is across the industry really is that we've got a lot of information in our heads that we really need to share with other folks. So this panel highlights that in my humblest of opinions. They're a great group of people and I really enjoy working together with them. And we do have a special guest in here that maybe some of you have seen at some point. Rocky the raccoon living up in that attic. All right, so we're going to dive right in. I know we have 90 minutes to do this webinar and we are going to move quick. So we want to give you as much content as we can and insight as we can as we are navigating this webinar. So a couple of different categories for this game here. We've got Hold My Beer, My Nose is Running, Damn the Damning, The Roof is on Fire, Elsa's Frozen Adventure, and Bring That Ceiling Down. All right, let's go to the first one here. All right, we're going to start big. We're going to go with the roof. The roof is on fire for 1,000. Katie, why don't you take this one away?
All right. So for those of you that can see this photo, what in the heck happened, right? This is actually the aftermath of an attic fire that occurred while one of CMC's weatherization crews was installing air sealing and insulation in an attic. So this is at the time I was supervising our weatherization install crews. So we're located in central New Jersey. It was the middle of winter time. We had a crew out on a job, one crew lead and two technicians. And I get the phone call from the crew lead and he just goes, Katie, we had a fire in the attic. And I'm like, oh my God, my mind goes immediately to the worst possible scenario. And so my first question is, are you okay? Is the crew okay? Are you okay? Like what, is everybody safe? And luckily he was all right. He had a little bit of a small burn on his hand, but nothing that required anything more than first aid. And so, first step was like, okay, go get the first aid kit, make sure you take care of yourself first. And then my second question is, what the heck happened, right? How did a fire happen inside of an attic? So I went out to the site. I wasn't far from the office. I did a walkthrough. I talked to the homeowner. We made sure that she was okay. We talked to the crew. We made sure that our gas leak testing was all good, right? We didn't have any dangers there. And we're now at this point, there's a big fire engine in front of the house. All the neighbors are coming out, seeing what the heck is going on. And so the fire department was not super confident about their response to it. They said, there's no further danger of fire here, but they really didn't have a reason as to why the fire had happened. And so we dug into it a little bit. We determined it wasn't anything to do with those electrical wires that you can see in the picture. It wasn't really anything obvious until we started digging into it a little bit. So to give you a little bit of a background, right, we mentioned it was the middle of the winter time. Now, those of us who work in the weatherization field know that one of the things that you will see on a job site is guys in Tyvek suits, right? They get the bunny suits on, which are very staticky, right? They have a lot of static in them, and especially in the wintertime when the conditions are dry. When you're walking around in a Tyvek suit, you're probably getting shocked every couple steps. And so we had this really, really high static electricity level in this attic. And to give you a little bit more context, the attic was over top of the garage area. It was a pull down staircase that entered into this garage, and it was just a very low roof height. And this was a vertical wall that we were trying to treat, and the eave was right there. So it was a very tight space. And as we found out later, the aerosol foam cans that we use for foaming, for air sealing in the attic, had been in the truck, really cold that morning, and they hadn't been warmed up prior to the crews starting to use them. And when I spoke to my crew lead about it, he mentioned that he had noticed that the color of the foam was actually a little bit different when it was coming out of the foam gun. And so what we were able to determine is that because it was so cold out and the foam chemicals in the aerosol can had not been mixed properly prior to using them, what was actually happening when they pulled the trigger of the foam gun was that the accelerant in the aerosol can was coming out before the foam was coming out. And so the color was off. And now you have an accelerant that's highly flammable coming out of that gun. All it needs is one spark, which our nice staticky Tyvek suits in the dry weather conditions promptly gave us. So fire from one tiny spark. Luckily, we had a crew lead who was, fairly aware of what was going on. He was quickly able to snuff it with a piece of fiberglass, but it taught us a lot of lessons, right? We were very lucky that nobody else was injured and that there wasn't much damage to the structure of the house or the electrical wiring that was right there. But we learned a lot about aerosol foam cans. So you can see on this slide, always make sure that you're keeping aerosol foam cans as warm as you can, especially in the wintertime. If you have winter seasons in your location, right here in New Jersey, we have the extreme heat that we've had this week in the summertime, and then we have the extreme cold as well. So we try to keep our foam can boxes in the truck cabs. We try to bring them inside the night prior so that, we keep them in our warehouse. They stay relatively warm. And even if they are or aren't able to be kept warm, we always make sure that we're shaking those cans before, during, and during use, right? Because if those chemicals aren't properly mixed, you're either going to get too much foam or too much accelerant. You want to have that perfect mix. And there's all sorts of different brands and different types that you can have that have different specifications for what temperatures those materials should be kept under. And then the last thing is, static electricity. It's an easy thing to think of like, oh, it's not important. I'm not going to worry about it. But especially if you're in really dry conditions and it's really staticky and you're in a Tyvek suit, that makes it even more staticky. Try to discharge that static electricity as often as you can, right? All it takes is touching something that's metal that can ground you before you go into the attic or, before you go into a confined space area. But it's going to go a long way towards keeping you safer. And then finally, the last thing was that we just keep, emergency items with us. We now have emergency bags that our weatherization crews take into the attic with them. Fire extinguisher, one of those just small 16-ounce kind of cans, so that, they don't have to be thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to run out of the attic to get the fire extinguisher that's on the truck that's out in the street. And maybe injure themselves on the way there because they're in such a hurry. So making sure that they always have the materials that they need with them in the space that they're working, making sure they know where their exit is, because let's be real, sometimes we don't have time to fight a fire. Sometimes we just have to get the heck away from it. So make sure you know what you would do in the case of an emergency. Make sure that your crews are aware that this is something that can happen. It's not something that happens often, certainly, but it does happen. And, make sure we don't get any cowboys out there using more foam than they need. The more you open up that foam gun, you're going to get more foam, but you're also going to get more accelerant, and it's going to be a higher chance of becoming flammable. So lots of learning points that we got from this. Again, very lucky that nobody was injured in this particular case, but taught us a lot of lessons, and gave us a lot of reason to do some. Let's go back to the drawing board and think about how we can make this a little bit safer.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I think you did a great job talking through this, and what a unique situation to work through. The chats opened up, and man, it's I love my folks on here in the weatherization field. You're my people. I have one, Dave Bards. I've had the humidity so low that my foam just oozed out and didn't foam up actually and expand. And then another with Josiah saying he had they had a foam gun start spewing fire after a static shot jumped up from the foil-faced foam that they were sealing. So it's nice to know we're not alone out there, and we're all going through this in our own way as well. So likewise, I should have announced this at the beginning. If you do have questions at the bottom, if you're on your cell phone or on a laptop or a computer, at the bottom there's going to be a little bar that pops up that has a Q&A box. There's a little box with a question mark in it. If you've got questions, that's the place to drop those questions in, and I will do my best to facilitate an answer as we are going through this webinar. And again, at the end as well, we'll open it up as well. So we're gonna take a swing at the next question here. So what do we got, Jasmeet? All right. All right, grab the tissues. My nose is running for 800. Sonia, I think you're going to be up on this one.
What? Oh, yeah. So what have we here? A couple of things. How often do you really clean your HVAC filter? That's a question that we pose to the homeowner. And honestly, about half the time they go like, what? There's a filter in there? I never knew. It's important. Especially HVAC guys, they'll get a call saying, my AC is not working. It was fine last week, this week, last season. I turned it off. I turn it on now. I got no heat or whatever. And, they go in, they ask that question. But us as technicians, when we go out into the home, we don't ask this question a lot of times, and we should. And sometimes we don't even look at the filters, and we should, especially if a customer is complaining about not getting enough heat or not getting enough cold, in one room or the other. Um, but we have to go and look, all right, and we have to educate the customer and tell them, hey, this is preventive maintenance. You need to go and check the filter and make sure that it doesn't look like that one on the left side of the screen there. A lot of stuff can go wrong when you don't check these filters. You get poor indoor air quality, which is going to lead to unhealthy situations. The efficiency will be reduced, on the mechanical equipment. It's going to put extra strain, all right, because the air can't move through the system as it needs to. Internal damage to the components of the HVAC system. And more important than anything else is that human comfort level. That's what everybody's out there looking for. That's what the homeowner wants. That's what we're trying to achieve when we go into these houses. We want to make sure that when we leave, they're better than. I'm not sure who it was, but somebody shared a story with me. Might have been Shane, okay, that somebody was complaining there wasn't enough airflow. He went to look, asked about the filter, And it appears that these people had been constantly just pushing filters into the slot and not removing the previous one, which is kind of crazy. All right. The other thing is not just about these filters. Okay. There's a filter in the dryer that needs to be checked. A lot of people don't think about it. It's a lint trap, whatever. Um, I actually went to do a home energy audit at a firefighter's house. And when I pulled the lint trap, it was like a block of dust. And I'm like, really? Like, this is you? Like, you're a firefighter. You should know about this. She was a little embarrassed, but she goes, yeah, I need to do better. Well, we all need to do better, all right, for various reasons, So just remember, check the air filter. Just remember, educate your homeowner, educate your customer, let them know, show them where it is, take them by the hand, walk them over there. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Sonia, and yes, I remember those stories quite well. The photograph that's on this slide actually took maybe 6 years ago ish. The customer was convinced they actually did not have a furnace filter, so I took them down and showed them their furnace and showed them how to access it, and sure enough, this is what we pulled out. So we're going to try to keep you a little bit engaged here, take a break from some material. We've got a poll question that should be popping up on your screen right now. So the first question that we're going to be asking is, what role do you have in weatherization? This is a single choice answer, and I know many of you can probably plug in and say, if not one or two, if not more. Excuse me. So if you would, sorry about that. If you would, go ahead and select the best option that best describes what you do in the industry. Okay. And Jasmine, I'm not sure if you can see the completion level of it, but when you feel that we're closed out confidently, go ahead and close it out. And it looks like, okay, great. Thank you. There are the results coming up right now. So it looks like we've got about 30% of energy auditors on this call. So 16 energy auditors on the call, 3 crew leaders, and 3 field techs. So thank you to the crew leads and the field techs that are on this call. Thank you so much for being here, taking the time. I know that it's 3:30 Eastern Standard Time right now, which means you're crawling out of the attic and heading back to the shop. Man, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here as we're doing this. So, all right, we're going to move on to the next question here. So what's it going to be? All right, we're going to go with Elsa's Frozen Adventure for 600. Jeff, this sounds like your neck of the woods over there in New York.
Thank you, Shane. Yes, if you folks live in the southern hot climates, you may have never seen a home like this. So when I first started Wise Home Energy 15 years ago, I thought to myself, how do I find clients? And then I realized as I drove around in the wintertime, the clients' homes are shouting at me and yelling at me, and they're actually dangerous for the homeowners and the people that visit them because they can have ginormous ice chunks hanging off of their roof like this. So this is something that's really passionate for me because some of those homes I chose that had this type of ice they're not always straightforward to fix. And I think there's many people that are still in the industry that struggle to fix these homes. And then we have the people that aren't BPI certified and they have no idea how this works. Well, I'll add a power vent, and I saw this class. I'll stuff some fiberglass here, and really you end up with a homeowner who doesn't even maybe know that this is a problem. I always state that around Christmas time they'll sell lights that are made to look like icicles hanging from your gutter. So it's such a common facet in the North that we have really highlighted it and made it part of our holiday celebration. And so to go into these homes and to think that fixing them is going to be easy is probably far from the truth. It's going to take a lot of discovery with our diagnostic tools. We're going to want to use that blower door test. And sometimes that test is just a number that we're getting at the door. But a lot of times we really need to go much farther with that blower door test. We're going to need to use infrared scans. We're going to need to use a manometer to check the pressure to the attic. So some of the reasons that ice is created is it's a multi-pronged approach. We can have clearly air leakage is one of the biggest culprits. We're going to have the leakage zones coming from the living space through our normal penetrations, lighting fixtures, electrical fixtures, and in this case, we have a knee wall that it typically is an air path on the floor underneath the knee wall. So we can diagnose this. We can't fix it when it's happening. So in my neck of the woods, people call and they want the ice taken care of at this very moment. And the irony is when the ice is up there, there's really nothing you can do to long-term correct it. You can only short-term manage it. And that is things like safely remove the snow from the edge of the roof. You can throw some calcium chloride up there to help melt some channels. But really, we have heat coming up and melting the snow on the roof on the upper edges, coming down and freezing after it gets past that end wall, where it's naturally going to be colder because it has no warming surfaces at the soffit edge. And then that refreeze, snow and refreeze will happen in a cycle over a series of days, and that ice dam can then back up water into the home. So we can say, oh, I did a blower door. We can say, oh, I added baffles. We can say, oh, I added insulation. But isn't the real test is the ice gone? Is the blower door much lower? Is the zonal pressure much more connected to outdoors than indoors? And we have to talk to our clients in a manner of not absolutes. I will solve this ice dam problem. We use terms like we can dramatically improve the ice creation on your roof, which will make your home much more durable. We won't have water coming in your home. So we want to clarify, and it's best to do that in writing, because if you say I can fix this, people just heard that you can fix it. And it's good to get that in writing that you're going to make improvements, and the improvements will be with those tests to say the blower door has come down by 30%. We should be able to get this to a stage where we can not have water coming into the home. Mother Nature is a difficult a foe, and sometimes they're going to throw some things at you that it's gonna be hard to beat them. So we want to use clarifying comments like that hey, we're going to improve this. I'll use terms like, hey, we're going to improve this 90% of the way. And then some people don't even know that we had a call that he was upset because he still had some icicles, and we went to his street, and his home was the only home with snow on it, and he had a very tight pitch, and our recommendation was to add a few more soffit vents, but he didn't know that snow on his roof was a good thing. He thought because all of his neighbors had no snow on their roof, he was the one in tough shape. And we were laughing because we're like, you're the one who's actually in good shape. So, but it's about proving it. And that's what I love about this work is we can prove that we dramatically improved it by testing, recording those tests, and presenting those tests to our clients and or any funding sources or programs that are sending you out to do this work or giving you rebates. So that's my passion. And hopefully someday it'll all be gone and I'll be moving on to something else. But I think ice dams are here for the foreseeable future in climate number 5.
Yeah, Jeff, I love your optimism with it. I think that's the goal, is to really work ourselves out of a job at some point, huh? A couple of things even in the chat that we're seeing, a key to this is really the diagnostic testing. It's the zone pressure diagnostics. Ian Brown has commented in on using duct blasters to quantify leaks and trace them in uninsulated areas. These are all really critical things. And I love that you're saying that it really does come down to, blower door tests and zone pressure diagnostics and duct leakage testing. They really are not just a check the box item. They're a diagnostic test that gives you information that allows you to make decisions and altering the envelope of that customer's house. So thanks for that, Jeff. Really appreciate it. It was great to see, what work in New York looks like in the wintertime.
Just to add to those diagnostic tests can also be such a great communicator to homeowners, right? I'm sure most of us have had the experience if we've been an auditor or a crew lead or somebody out in the field where you run that blower door and you bring the homeowner over to where all the air's been getting sucked in from the attic. It can really change their mind and make them realize how much of a difference that air sealing can make.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. And it really does come down to the customer education. We got to change habits too. All right, let's go to that next question. Uh-oh, the roof is on fire for 800. Let's talk to Andrew about that one.
All right. So what do we have here? Another what the heck moment. I'm pretty sure a lot of us out in the field have come across, one time or another, something like this. So what we have here is a disconnected flue pipe from what looks like is a domestic hot water heater. Now, what are the potential dangers here? For one, backdrafting at the vent hood. The gap visible between the draft hood and the vent pipe indicates improper venting, which can cause backdrafting. And this means exhaust fumes, i.e. carbon monoxide, may not be venting properly outside and could leak into the home. This is extremely dangerous and should be corrected immediately. Next, we can see some corroded or improper pipe fittings. The cold and hot water lines appear to have some corrosion or possible leakage around the fittings, and over time, this can lead to leaks and water damage. Another thing we can see here is the use of PEX tubing. Now, PEX tubing may be used in some areas, but if not installed correctly or if they are damaged, they could fail under pressure or heat. It's important they are rated for water heater use and properly secured. In this image, we can also see an object to the left of the draft hood that could potentially be flammable and should not be stored on top or near the gas appliance. Additionally, any clutter around the gas water heater poses a fire risk. The vent pipe must rise continuously to ensure proper draft. If it is flat, poorly connected, or improperly sloped, it increases the risk of carbon monoxide buildup. And as the contractor, your job is to properly reseat and replace the draft hood so it's fully inserted and securely attached to the vent connector. You want to check that the vent pipe is sized correctly, pitched upwards, and terminates at the approved chimney vent cap. Next, we want to talk about the importance of combustion testing. Number one, BPI certification is very important. It ensures competency, verifies that a technician or energy auditor has been trained and tested to perform combustion safety testing accurately and in compliance with industry standards. Required by many utility weatherization and energy efficiency programs, lends authority to assessments, liability, and safety. Certified professionals are more likely to identify and mitigate hazards, correctly reducing legal and safety issues. BPI standards. You want to define the procedures. Establish the step-by-step methods for combustion appliance zone testing, worst case depressurization, spillage, CO testing, and draft. Uniformity and reproducibility. ensures that all professionals follow the same guidelines, making results consistent across homes and contractors. And lastly, risk reduction, built around minimizing the risk of backdrafting and carbon monoxide exposure. You want to follow your program-specific standards. Government or utility-sponsored programs may add additional testing thresholds, documentation requirements, or safety protocols beyond BPI. Failure to follow these standards can lead to disqualification for reimbursements or incentives. You want to reflect regional differences in fuel type, appliance types, housing stock, or environmental concerns. For the health and safety, your main goal is to protect the occupant. You want to identify and help prevent exposure to combustion byproducts like carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and unburned fuel. You want to prevent serious risk. You want to detect risk of fire, explosion, or asphyxiation from malfunctioning or improperly vented appliances. Combustion safety testing is a core part of whole house assessments for good indoor air quality and occupant wellness. Lastly, you want to provide as much education as you can possibly do. This builds technician skill sets. Ongoing training helps pros stay updated with evolving standards, technology, and best practices. Educating homeowners on appliance safety, ventilation, and maintenance helps ensure long-term safety, and it promotes informed decision-making. Knowledgeable contractors and auditors can better explain test results and corrective actions.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate that. And again, I really appreciate the Building Performance Institute pulling us all together, not only just giving us a chance to be together, at least virtually, but also, man, what a reminder to all of us. Those BPI certifications, they're more than just a plastic card. They're more than just a piece of paper, right? They are certifications that demonstrate that you as the industry professional understand the concepts. You understand the safety requirements, you understand the testing procedures and the requirements. And it's a good reminder to us all that we are professionals and these certifications really matter. So that's something to keep in mind for those BPI certified professionals on the call. And I appreciate, I actually saw on the panel over here, my former crew lead is here in the background as a attendee of the webinar, Chris Frey. So thank you for that picture of that water heater. Really appreciate it. And yes, it is a real water heater. And yes, PEX was used. So you always kind of keep to scratch your head a little bit as you see this stuff. But thank you very much, Andrew. It was much appreciated for that reminder. All right, let's see what's up next here. Here we go. All right. Bring that ceiling down for 1,000. What in the world could this one be? Katie.
Yes, that would quite literally be a ceiling that collapsed from the weight of insulation. And so as our slide says, how important is it to check the structural integrity of the attic plane before we blow insulation? So again, this was one of CMC's weatherization crews. We air sealed in blue cellulose. And unfortunately, in this particular instance, we blew cellulose in an area of the attic that was not ready for the additional weight. For those of you that have not blown cellulose, it is actually extremely heavy. If you've ever lifted one of those bags of cellulose that our crew members get to rip open and dump into the hopper, very tiring job, by the way. It is very heavy. And when you add bags and bags of it across a wide surface area, you're going to have a very high likelihood, if that ceiling is not structurally sound, of collapse. Now, I know we can't do like a point and raised hand thing, but if anybody can add in the chat, can anybody tell me why we would not want to insulate over what we would call up in New Jersey, maybe a 3-season porch or a sunroom? There's a particular reason why we wouldn't want to insulate over a space like that. Actually, there's a few reasons that we wouldn't want to, but if anybody can kind of jump in the chat and give me some ideas. But while we're waiting for some of those answers to come in, let's talk about what went wrong here, right? And so we maybe didn't have a sufficient pre-job walkthrough before we started this work, right? Maybe if we had walked through, we would have found some cracks or some sagging in this area that might have indicated to the crew lead that, hey, maybe we don't want to add additional weight here. Maybe we would have noticed that the space wasn't heated, it wasn't cooled, it's not a conditioned space. So I see we got some answers in there, and I just kind of let the cat out of the bag, right? So a three-season porch or a sunroom typically are not heated or cooled. They don't have an active supply vent or supply baseboard. And for that reason, number one, we don't want to insulate above them because you're not really saving any energy. So most programs that some of us might work in probably wouldn't allow it or wouldn't pay for it at the very least. But the second reason is because a lot of times they're kind of an afterthought, right? Maybe they were an addition or maybe they're original house, but a lot of times those ceilings are not secured in the same way that the rest of the drywall is secured in the rest of the building, or in any case, it's thought of a little bit less importantly. And so a lot of times the structural integrity of those rooms, because they're not conditioned, they're going to experience that expansion and contraction from season to season a lot more severely than your conditioned spaces are. So there's going to be a higher likelihood that you're going to see some structural issues in those areas. And so if we'd done a little bit more thorough of a walkthrough of this home prior to starting the work, we might have noticed some of the signs of that sagging drywall, or some nail pops and things showing us that that drywall was not structurally sound enough to take any additional weight. So some of our takeaways from this, right? It goes same ideas with the fire that we had. Plan ahead, and crew leads especially, and that goes for our crew technicians as well, right? You guys are out there as a team. You're in the heat, you're in the cold, you're in every kind of weather. And we can trust our auditors to catch stuff, or we can trust ourselves to make sure that we catch anything that they might miss, right? At the end of the day, we're all working towards the same goal, but we're also all human. And, we all know that crews miss things. We know that auditors miss things. We know that we're all human and we're all going to miss something one of these days. So check, double check, triple check if you have to. Check each other. And that goes for safety stuff as well. It's up in New Jersey here, we've had a crazy heat wave this week. It's been 95 plus degrees every day. It's been 134 degrees in the attics, right? We're swapping our crew members out. We're giving 15 minutes in the attic, 15 minutes out of the attic, right? Looking out for each other and checking to make sure that we're not doing more than we can physically do. And then the last thing, you can see it on the slide here. Always double check your thermal and pressure boundaries, right? It's easy to just kind of look at a work order and say, okay, this is the work that we're doing today. Let's get it done. But a good crew lead should be taking a look at that work order, making sure that it actually matches what's in the house. Doesn't happen every day, but a lot of times conditions change from the time that the work order was created to the time that it's actually getting installed. I know for some programs, you might have 6 months or more in between when the audit happens and when the actual install takes place. So, after this incident, we implemented an additional requirement for photos of the ceilings during our job walkthroughs, right? So if there's nail pops and things like that, we can catch it prior to doing the install. That way, when you inevitably get the phone call from the homeowner, hey, why is there a nail pop in my ceiling? You can send them a picture and say, actually, sir or ma'am, this was what your house had prior to us doing the work. But yeah, it's going to prevent callbacks for silly stuff, and it's going to potentially prevent major issues like this ceiling collapse. Something else that we implemented was a customer sign-off document. Obviously, if you work within a program, you may or may not be able to do this. But especially if you're, a market rate contractor, you can absolutely create a customer sign-off template that just kind of says that you reviewed the work with the customer after it was completed, it was explained, the customer understands, the customer, is confirming that the work area was cleaned after the work was completed. And it's just a really easy way to get that final customer buy-in prior to something like a quality assurance inspection, where they're going to ask for feedback and they're going to ask those questions about, what was your experience like, and how was the crew? Did they use drop cloths? Did they protect your property? All that kind of stuff. For folks like Andrew and I who work in the quality assurance world all day long, those are the things that we're worried about when we go out to the job is, how is this feedback going to come back to us? Is it going to be positive or is it going to be negative? And obviously we all want positive feedback, but you can't always get the positive feedback. There's always going to be that negative. And the difference is how we treat it, right? When we get that negative feedback, are we going to make changes that are constructive and are going to help our crews have better experiences and better outcomes? Or are we just going to be defensive and upset that we got the negative feedback and, be annoyed that the QA inspector was being a little too hard on us? At the end of the day, we're human, we make mistakes, but let's use those mistakes to get better and improve our processes.
You got it. Thank you, Katie. I really appreciate that response. And I think again, it's one of those things that it's the structural integrity, figuring that out. We're going to launch another poll right now. So it's up on your screen. How long have you been in the industry? Less than a year, 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or 10 plus years. As this question's up and running and you're clicking those answers in, the one thing that I think is important is regardless of how long we've been in this industry, we really got to just stop and think about what we're doing, right? That's what we're seeing. That's kind of the theme of this webinar and this training. So again, as this is going through, it's really not about the years that you work here. It's about stopping and thinking, man, would I do this in my own home? All right, well, let's see what those responses are. Here we go. Okay, so 6% are less than a year, 23% 1 to 5 years, 15% 5 to 10 years, and 57% 10 plus years. There is a lot of information, a lot of knowledge on this call with that. So we thank you so much for participating there and especially for being here. You all are the spine of this industry and you're passing that information through. All right, so let's go ahead and see what that next question is. Hold my beer for 200. This is quite fitting for Sonia here. So let's see what we got here, Sony.
Yeah, this is exactly what I want in my house. All right. This is exactly what I would do in my house. If I needed additional combustion air in my castle, yes, I would drill 2 holes in my beautiful door, all right, and put those register grates right in the middle of the room there. Okay. Like, what was they thinking? What thought process went through their mind that said, this is okay for me to do in someone else's house? Like, sometimes you just have to think, is this what I want to see in my house? Before you go through with it, just think about it. Do I want this in my house? All right. Would I do this in my house? Wait a minute. Let me take it a little bit further. The person who's living with me, would they beat me up behind this, or are they going to be okay with it? You as technicians, you have to take pride in what you do. You have to have a sense of, yes, I did it. I did a great job. I did the best that I could. I didn't leave it looking like that, whatever that other thing was. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways. And if you're out there and you're not sure of how you could solve that problem, call a buddy, you know, call your supervisor, talk to the technician, talk to your grunt and say, hey, you think this makes any sense? Because I'm sure if that person would have asked anybody, ask the homeowner, hey, can I cut a hole in your door there? And they're going to say, are you crazy? And then that hopefully will make you think about it. And we're constantly looking for pictures to put into our slide deck.
I mean, that is kind of a thing here, Sonia. It's becoming a theme. And I think, one of the things to really motivate, the listeners on the call is just keep in mind, if we get a picture of it, next year, you might see it in the slide deck. So That's something we definitely want to avoid. But I mean, back to Sonia's point, sort of the beginning of this, it is something super important to think about. Just ask yourself something really simple. Would I do this in my own home? Am I proud of that work that I'm leaving this, customer's house, um, that I've installed in there? Is this okay? And I think most everybody, I love the commentary going on in the chat with some of this stuff. It really, to us, we look at it and go, what in the world were they thinking? But this is a real job. These are real people's homes. So it's definitely something to keep in mind as you're out there, because this stuff's happening. And like Sonia said, you've got a plethora of resources here. I mean, look at this call. More than half of the folks that have been in this industry that are on this webinar right now have been in here for more than 10 years. They've been there, they've done that, they've seen stuff like this. They know how to get through it. So again, don't ever hesitate to pick up that phone and call. Whether you feel like an inconvenience or not, doesn't matter. You need to make that call. You need the support from your team. So thank you
Yeah,
so
and
much. Yep.
I just want to add
Go
one
ahead.
more thing, and it's not just about like that door, all right?
Right.
It's, I mean, the things that we see out there, okay? I mean, I was in a basement, went back in, all right, to do my CAS test out after my technician had been in the basement foaming, all right? And there's like a bunch of guitars that clearly somebody paid money for. I mean, and there's foam on every single one of them, all right, that had dripped down after they air sealed. You know, they foamed and left, and the foam dropped on the guitars, and they saw it, but they never said anything, you know. And then I go down to button up, and I'm like, "Ah, oh my God, we are going to buy guitars next week." So it's in everything that you do that you really should take pride in what you're doing. And just ask yourself that question: would I do this? Would I leave this as is? Something happened. Am I going to do nothing about it? Walk away, hope that it'll clean itself up or take care of itself?
Yeah,
Just think a little bit. Just make it your home.
that's right.
I
Yeah,
think.
thank you for that reminder, Sonia. That is really the key. That's the key to what we're doing. We are, I have this saying that we sort of, as weatherization and energy efficiency professionals, we have so many calluses on our hands from dragging those hoses into the house or crawling through the crawl space, and just really just doing it over and over and over again. But the thing to remember when you go into somebody's home is it's exactly that. It's their home. It's their dream. It's their place where they live. It's their refuge from the world. And I think if we think that way, which I think a lot of us do, but if we'd all think that way, we wouldn't see things like this happening in our industry. So again, that's really the key, is just really stop and think for a second. What am I doing? And is it the right thing? It's that integrity, right? Do we have the integrity that we strive to have as a business or as a person? All right, let's go to that next question. Oh no, we're going back to hold my beer for 1,000. I mean, it is almost Friday. Jeff, why don't you give us a swing at this one here?
Thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. I'm glad I made it to the 1,000 category. So I was lucky enough to walk through a basement, and I saw this duct ceiling. And I can't speak to when this duct ceiling happened. I can really speak to nothing of the quality of the person who was installing it. I can just say what I saw, and it just struck me as very odd. And sometimes we can get very focused on what we need to do in a home. So if someone says, go insulate this attic, go duct seal this duct, we might get so focused on accomplishing that task, we want to stop and maybe think about, why are we doing that? So, this might have been a quality install some years ago that copper pipe may have been more attached to that ceiling, and they just decided to go right over it because they couldn't go under it. It may have dislodged since. Maybe that was part of the duct ceiling. It cooled down the basement, and the expansion and contraction was what was left. But we don't really know why this was duct sealed, and depending on how you've learned the trade is going to be different the way I've learned the trade and what you've been introduced to. So somebody might tell you, let's go duct seal, but maybe you've never been taught to analyze if the duct is leaky, or maybe you've never been taught to look at the temp rise. Maybe this home has an oversized furnace, and duct sealing isn't the greatest thing you could be doing. Naturally, we do want to seal returns if we have natural draft appliances so they don't backdraft, but we may be prescriptively just installing things, and we could possibly be making things worse. So recognizing that nobody knows everything in this industry. And I always say, the minute I think I do, please let me know, and it's time for me to retire. So make sure you find the right mentor, and find many mentors. There's things that I run into this day, and I think, you know what, I need a second opinion. I got to look through my phone and see who I can call who's a specialist in this particular area, because I've run into something that it's got me a little befuddled, and that's the building science part of it. So, so when we're going about a particular measure, or we're training maybe somebody else in the field, we want to tell them how to properly do it, how to make it look good, but we certainly want to tell them why we are doing this. We are not doing this strictly because some program told us to do it. We're doing this for a particular reason. Basement is dirty. We don't want the return air to be sucking from the basement. The system isn't balanced if we have leaks on the supply and the return side. Duct blasters are time consuming to set up, and so we don't see them used a lot because no one's paying for that. But there are other systems. A little smoke test could help us tell what's going on in the home. Doing a depressurization, maybe that's why this was spec'd to properly seal just the return side of it. But we have the visual. Yeah, does somebody look at this and say, I did a good job? And like I said, I don't know who did this, and I can't speak to that. But thinking of the why of why we're doing something is a very important thing to me, and it's an important thing that I want to make sure folks in our organization understand why we're doing it. And then likewise, we want the client to understand why we're doing it. We're not doing it just to make our organization money or to satisfy some prescriptive rebate measure that we need to do. There has to be some real reason behind it. And then going back to what I was saying earlier, the test, then we should have a test for this. We should be able to say beyond visual, hey, this did what I wanted it to do. This improved. The depressurization went down in the basement. This did the thing that I wanted it to do. So it's easy to get caught up in your day-to-day and just kind of go through the motions. We all have it. We're explaining to a customer something very quickly because we've explained it 1,000 times, and we might have to slow down and remember that they're going through this not only maybe the first time, but maybe the only time in their life they're going to have somebody in their home doing this type of work. So just slow down sometimes a little bit and explain it, and be able to explain it to someone you're maybe mentoring, or explaining it to the client of why you're doing the work.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Jeff. I think you said it best. You really, here comes saying number 2, right? The only consistent thing in weatherization is challenge and change. It is a challenge for many, many reasons. The housing stock or the customer or whatever the case may be. But we're always changing. and remember why we change, because we're learning. We do it better than the average contractor. And that's something to really hold tight to for all of you on this call, is to remind yourself you are a scientist, you're a building scientist, and you are the expert. And that's the thing that always amazes me with weatherization professionals. Not only do we know BPI standards, but we also understand and execute building codes. We understand the impact of organizations like NREL, and the SWS on different job sites that we're working in. So we're the people that rely on each other to improve that, and quite often we're the ones setting the pace. The new construction folks, they're just now starting to do blower doors. We've been doing that for 20 years. So it's really nice to see that catching up, to see the rest of the world catching up with the work that you all have been doing. And keep learning, keep relying on each other. There's I think, Jeff, again, you said it best. Like, man, if I ever think that I know everything and anything about weatherization, I'm not going to be working in weatherization anymore. So thanks for that, Jeff. All right, let's see that next question here. All right, bring that ceiling down for 200. Andrew Rodriguez, take it away.
All right. So another what the heck moment. So in the picture we see here, a ton of water leaking out through the roof. Now, which one came first, the Tyvek or the roof leak? I'm going to say that the roof leak came first, and this was just a Band-Aid on a major issue. So what causes roof leaks? For one, poor maintenance. Neglecting routine care leads to damage and leaks. As Jeff pointed out earlier, the accumulation of ice dams. Ice from attic heat or weight can damage roofing. Inadequate valley waterproofing. Poor installation or damage causes leaks. Cracked flashing. Whether wear degrades flashing, allowing water intrusion. Damaged vent booting. Aging materials around vents may crack or leak. Debris in gutters. Blocked drainage causes overflow and roof damage. Improperly installed skylights. Faulty setup lets water in around the frames. And incorrectly driven nails. Nails not seated properly may back out, causes leaks. Now, your job as the auditor or crew lead is to perform I would say, a very intense visual inspection of the home. You want to identify visible signs of damage. Use the tools that you have available to you. Perform diagnostic testing. Use tools to detect hidden issues, such as moisture meters or infrared cameras. You want to create a plan. Develop a plan to remediate or maintain or a maintenance strategy. Resolve the barrier. Address and fix the cause of the issue based off of program funding. You want to document your findings. Record findings, actions taken, and outcomes to provide to either your program or to the customer. And lastly, alter the envelope. You're going to modify and improve the building envelope as needed.
That's right, Andrew. I think again, it's like the common theme here through this whole webinar has been just slow down and take a look, check your work, test it. Get that rusty old pinpoint out of the bag and test the materials around you to see where it's at. Understand it's you can see things, but you can also see what you can't see with your eyes with tools. IR cameras are a wonderful tool when it comes to moisture as well. And the big thing I think, to remind ourselves is that what are we ultimately doing to the home? We're making it more energy efficiency or more energy efficient. We're improving the indoor air quality. We're educating the customer, but ultimately we're tightening up that house. So if these issues exist and you tighten that house up, now all of a sudden you've got a bigger risk at those issues becoming more prevalent. The indoor air quality, let's say there's moisture coming in like what you saw. Well, moisture breeds mold. And so now all of a sudden the occupants are dealing with mold all through the home. So again, it is really important because we know that a home works as a system. And that's something that we got to think through every time. So thank you very much, Andrew. I really, really appreciate that one. Especially it's, some of those times you scratch your head and say, what the heck were they thinking? All right, we're going to go ahead and launch the last poll. This poll is designed for all of you to just provide a little bit of feedback. So right now in the industry, what do you feel is your biggest challenge right now? Is it A, hiring or compensation or benefits or workload or other? I think again, it's really, there are a lot of things that we're working through in the industry right now. But what I'm asking you to do is just pick the number one thing. What is the biggest issue that you have right now? We'll let that up just for a little bit longer here, and so we can get a chance for multiple people to input here, for participants to input. Okay, I think we're good. And here we go. So the results, number one issue in the group that's on this call is hiring. 29% of you that are on here can't hire. 19% compensation issues, 0% with benefits, 32% with workload. A third of you on this call are saying, I've got too much workload. And then 19% with other. I really appreciate that input. And it does, again, these stats help drive change in our industry. So thank you for those that have participated. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I think we've got one last question here. Damn the damning for 1,000. Let's take a look at what that one is here real quick. All right, so I snuck this one in here. I had to. This is a photograph that we took, and it's just one of those ones where you look at it and you're like, maybe they get an A for effort. I'm not quite sure. So what you're seeing on the screen is quite literally the cardboard box that the bathroom fan came in prior to installing said bathroom fan. They flipped it around, flipped it upside down, and took two-part foam and went around the outside. So yeah, there's not a lot that can be said about this, but this is a real job and something we've seen for real. So anyways, I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of laugh with that one, and share it with you to say, we're not alone. We've seen this stuff. And man,
And in
what
this
the heck?
installer's defense, I mean, they had the right idea. They were
I mean,
halfway.
they do.
They knew they needed to dam it off and air seal it. Maybe they just, didn't have other materials available.
Yeah, especially, being that non-IC rated fixture, you got to keep the insulation off of it. And I guess that's where that A for effort comes in, maybe. But I don't know. I've seen weatherization professionals be pretty innovative, but this one really took the cake. All right, let's go ahead and go to that next slide. All right, we are approaching the end here, so we've got a question and answer session. Jasmine, do we have ability for folks to raise their hand and we can unmute them, or do we need to do it through Q&A box or chat?
Yeah, we can actually unmute people if they do raise their hands.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Diane. I did not raise my hand. That is.
You did now.
There she is.
It's the other Shane Bullock.
Right. The world's not quite ready for that one yet. All right, let me take a look here at the participants. Do we have anybody out there? Any questions at all? Can be related to what you saw, what you didn't see. If you have any questions, we're here and happy to chat through them. I'm not seeing anything come in. James, I love that statement.
I was gonna say, I love James's comment. Try your best to film the rest.
Yeah. And there I am typing in the chat. I promise that's not me. So, yeah. So I didn't really introduce what I do at the beginning of this, but I specialize in workforce development with my company, with Earth 4 Group, and we're working at doing that. So I'm actually on a tour through New England right now, coming back from Massachusetts and heading back down towards Pennsylvania, with a pit stop in Connecticut. So that's what I work on. You're going to see a QR code for all of us up here. If you're looking for weatherization contractors, you've got Jeff and Katie on here that can get you in contact, and just our plethora of information. And for quality control inspections, you've got a phenomenal organization in here with performance systems development, based out of Ithaca, New York, with Andrew Rodriguez, their field manager, on the call. They do some pretty incredible work and use data in a way that I've never seen it used before. So really appreciate that. And of course, our lead retired instructor, Sonia, really appreciate you being here. But if you would, Jasmine, go ahead and I think we have a couple slides left, right?
Yeah, we do. I'll go ahead and take over. Awesome. Well, thank you to our incredible panel, and thank you all for joining today. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on our webinar today. So feel free to submit by either scanning the QR code, or I will actually toss the survey link in the chat as well and give you a moment to pull out your phones if needed.
Yeah, and those surveys really help too. We're always looking for new ideas for doing presentations in collaboration with the Building Performance Institute and several other entities. This group of panelists here, we love being together. We love talking through this stuff. So we're around. If you've got any suggestions, please put us in there. And the chat that I am putting in here is in fact true. We do have 60 candidates who are behind me in several different classrooms that are recently certified. So if you're in the New England area, reach out to us.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. And if you're interested in receiving a BPI CEU, please email us at ceus@bpi.org with your name and ID number. And last but not least, we also have another great webinar coming up. I'm going to explore how acoustic imaging is revolutionizing energy efficiency inspections and building diagnostics. So you'll learn a little bit more about how this new technology compares to thermal tools and how it's used for air leakage detection. So if you're interested in registering, scan the QR code now and lock in your spot. Other than that, if we don't have any more questions, thank you all so much. And thanks again to all the presenters. We appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. That
everybody.
webinar is going to be one you don't want to miss. It's some really cool stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, BPI, for hosting this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.